Assalamu alaikum jameen wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As always, a very warm welcome to you all and your families watching the show on Sophia TV, where we discuss the practices and different philosophies of Hajj itself. And specifically today, we'll be focusing upon performing Hajj, but for others. And we are joined by our dear expert, our dear alim, Syed Raza Rizvi, who's here with us today. And as well as that, your brother Zuryaab Syed is also here to be comforting us. And inshallah, we'll be discussing, as I mentioned, some of the intricacies of performing Hajj for others and what we really mean by this. So without any further delay, I would like to welcome our dear respected scholar, Syed Raza Rizvi. Sayyidna, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I hope you're well today, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Dear Syed, so last time, if you remember, we focused upon the financial capabilities of a person, and we did the different, you could say, sub-branches from this. So inheritance, what's stolen money, and the like. Today we have, in this episode, the focus on Hajj, but on behalf of others. So as a first starting discussion, what qualities does a person need to have in order to perform Hajj for others?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Islam has given permission for a person to represent or perform the actions on behalf of another person.
Yes.
And for that there are certain obligations. Number one, they have to be an adult or have reached the stage of bulugh or puberty.
Yes.
Secondly, they must have sanity. They must be sane, yes, to be able to perform the actions on behalf of another person for Hajj. The third, they must be a person with faith, meaning they must be a practicing Muslim, Shia Muslim,
yes, to
do the niyabah on another person's behalf. So when you are hiring a person to perform your Hajj, you have to look for these qualities.
Okay.
And number four, they must have the ability to perform the entire Hajj physically by themselves,
okay,
without any physical assistance by others.
Okay. And just on that last point, they say, does, for example, if someone picks an individual and they only have like wheelchair access or, you know, some other impairment, but they can still perform the Hajj given the modern day, you know, facilities there, does that still count?
Unfortunately, they have to have the physical capability.
Okay.
They have to be capable to perform all actions as required by a person to perform standing, like tawaf and other obligations, physically in a perfect manner.
Okay. Thank you, dear Syed. And just carrying on from this, we get this question quite a lot that if it's obligatory on a person to perform the Hajj themselves, can they again do it for themselves first, or if they have a close relative, should they do theirs first?
If a person has the means, financial means and physical means, then they must perform their own Hajj.
Yes.
Before they can perform the Hajj on another person's behalf.
Yes.
And you cannot take the niyabah of another person until you perform your own obligatory Hajj.
Okay. And in this respect, if it's a female, can she ask a female, or does it have to be a male?
A male can perform on behalf of a female, and a female can perform the Hajj on behalf of a man. So there is not an obligation in Hajj that a man must perform the Hajj for a man or a woman must perform the Hajj for a woman. Either of the two genders, so long as they perform their own obligations correctly, they have performed the Hajj on behalf of another person, that will be acceptable as the Hajj that is obligatory in Islam.
Okay, perfect. And I've heard of this personally myself as well. They say that sometimes what happens is a person has performed his own wajib Hajj, but he has money to perform many more. And what these people tend to do is they ask people perhaps, you know, back home in Pakistan or these other countries, and they ask them that, you know, if you can't perform the Hajj, I'll do it on your behalf. Is that allowed within Islam?
It is permissible, and it is a common practice. Many people go on Hajj on regular basis every year to guide others, and because they are guides and they know the full rules of Hajj, then they usually take the niyabat or they ask people to pay for their Hajj for either their deceased members. So now if there is a deceased person who did not perform their Hajj, their children or family members or relatives or friends want to pay for their Hajj. So they can pay a person to perform the Hajj on their behalf. And this is what these people many times do when they're going to guide anyone's, for Hajj every year.
Yes.
Then they perform someone else's Hajj. Now, so the second method is that a person who is incapable physically to perform Hajj, but they have the financial means, then they usually ask another person to perform the Hajj on their behalf. And the third is that many people together, they want a very holy person or a scholar or a learned person or an elderly family member. They want to send them again for Hajj.
Yes.
Then what they do is they say, okay, on behalf of all 10 of us or 20 or 100 people, which is Mustahab Hajj. Mustahab Hajj you can perform on behalf of many, many different people. Okay. So what you do is you say that, okay, I will perform the Hajj on behalf of all of you. So because it is a Mustahab Hajj, they can include their own intention and on behalf of all of these people. But they have to make the intention on behalf of all of those people. That I'm performing this Hajj on behalf of all of these people. This is a Mustahab Hajj. On each obligation when they're performing, they must bring those people in mind to say that I am performing this Hajj on their behalf.
And that would only count as a Mustahab for those people if they haven't done their wajib yet. It can't be taken as their wajib if it's this person's Mustahab.
Well, you can only perform wajib Hajj on behalf of one person at one time.
Okay.
So I cannot take niyabah from 10 people or 2 people or more than one person to perform their wajib Hajj. Wajib Hajj has to be in 1 year for one person.
Okay.
But Mustahab Hajj can be performed on behalf of many people. If all of those people had a wajib Hajj on them, then they have to perform their own Hajj. If they had no capability, financial or physical capability, they obviously had the financial capability, that's why it's wajib. Then they must pay one person to perform the entire Hajj to perform on their behalf. But if they have performed their wajib Hajj, then they can sponsor, or if they haven't performed their wajib Hajj, the Hajj was not wajib, but they have small amount that they want to donate or contribute towards the Mustahab Hajj. 10 people can contribute, let's say, £200 each or £300 each for a person to perform a Mustahab Hajj.
Yes.
And that way, they will all receive the thawab or reward for a Mustahab Hajj.
Okay, perfect. That's thank you for that very beautiful explanation, Syed. Now, the next question is quite an interesting one. I've seen and heard many people do it as well. Some people, they do their Mustahab Hajj, but based on a holy infallible, like Imam Zamana, Ajdaraf Rajim Sharif, or one of the Aima, alayhim as-salams. Is that also allowed? Because then the next question people ask is that if they're allowed to do it for those holy personalities who are ma'soom, how can our act benefit them?
Okay, very good question. It is permissible, it is highly recommended that even if you don't do Hajj on their behalf, then you at least do a tawaf on their behalf. So if a person does Hajj on behalf of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, the Holy Prophet does not need it. So when you do it on his behalf, your reward will multiply.
Okay.
So what you may have performed yourself may have been just one Mustahab Hajj, but because of performing it on behalf of a holy personality, on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or on behalf of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam, or on behalf of Fatimatu Zahra salamullahi alayha, or on behalf of one of the Imams or all of the Imams or Shuhada of Karbala, then the reward is multiplied by many times. And then you get the reward of, and you receive the reward for performing that Hajj on behalf of those holy personalities.
SubhanAllah. Okay. So it's like a multiplier in this respect, that if you do it for those holy personalities, your reward is even triplified or 100 times more.
Yes, likewise, for example, reciting Quran on their behalf or performing any other Mustahab act on their behalf, your reward is multiplied.
Okay. And just on this topic, they say, because we're mentioning it anyway, a side question on this is that some people, when they go to, for example, Arba'een of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and they hear that it's worth, more than 70 Hajj or 80 Hajj, is that the wajib Hajj or the Mustahab Hajj? The sawab of going for Arba'een or other Aima alayhim salam?
For Mustahab Hajj.
Mustahab.
Okay. Which is even more rewarding
Yes, so it doesn't count as the wajib, so you have to still go and
You
perform your
still
wajib.
have to perform your obligatory Hajj.
Yeah.
It will not replace your obligatory Hajj. If you go to the ziyarat of Imam Hussain al-Islam or any other Imams, it does not replace the Hajj which is wajib upon you.
Yes.
And that will only be a ziyarat which has a lot of reward.
Yes.
But it does not replace your Hajj which was wajib, which you will still have to perform.
Okay.
At a point of your life.
Inshallah. Okay. Thank you, dear Syed, once more. The next topic we have in this regards is what about doing Hajj for a person who in his lifetime, he could have done it, but he chose not to. Now he's passed away, he's left it in his will, but the sons are saying no, because he had the chance, he didn't do it. I don't have the money now, I can't do it. So what happens in that case?
If a person was sinful and they did not perform it, even if you still do perform it, then that will be acceptable. That will be accepted.
Okay.
That his Hajj has been performed.
Yes.
But is it wajib upon a person? If a person says, if you have the means, then please do perform my Hajj. If he leaves a will and he leaves wealth behind, then it is again becomes wajib.
Yes.
He leaves, for example, he has left a house, he has left some wealth, some money in the bank, or he leaves behind money for the Hajj to be performed.
Yes.
Then that Hajj also becomes wajib.
Okay. I see.
But if he just leaves a will but does not leave any money behind,
Yes.
then does it become wajib upon a person to perform the Hajj on their behalf? For example, he leaves a will behind to his son, say that, okay, perform my Hajj from your own money. Then that is not wajib upon the son.
I see. So he must leave the provisions, or some provision at least, for his sons to be able to do the due. Okay. Thank you, dear Syed, once more. And again, just the final question on this respect. If a person is not financially able to do Hajj, but now they've been gifted the opportunity to do so, but for someone else, again, in that circumstance, do they have to do the other person's first or their own one?
So they have the...
No financial capability at all. But because they're able-bodied, someone who's not able-bodied has said, could you go perform my wajib one for me?
Then because their Hajj is not wajib, what they're performing is on behalf of another person. That will count as that person's Hajj.
Yes.
And it will be a valid Hajj.
Okay.
On behalf of that person.
Other person. Okay. Thank you, dear Syed, for that beautiful explanation. The next question I have in this respect, Syed, is if a person, he's financially able to go, he's physically able to go, but there's some parts of the Hajj he physically cannot do. For example, the stoning of the shaitan, or some other acts, or the tawaf thereafter. Can he nominate someone whilst he's there to do it on his behalf?
Yeah, that's a very important question. If a person goes on Hajj and has the ability to perform most parts of Hajj, but some parts of Hajj he cannot perform, or she cannot perform, because they are either not strong enough to perform tawaf, then they can ask a person to perform those parts. For example, the rami, the stoning of the shaitan.
Yes.
So they can ask another person to perform on their behalf, that can you go and stone the shaitan? So then a person will perform their rami first, and then will make the intention that I am now performing the rami or the stoning of the shaitan on behalf of so-and-so person for their Hajj, wajib qurbatanillah, for example, and they will do the niyabat, or or like the sacrifice, qurbani, for example, slaughter of an animal.
Yes.
So what happens is that most people actually don't do it themselves. Okay. Another person goes and performs it on their behalf, and then they inform them that now I have performed the sacrifice on your behalf, I've slaughtered an animal.
Yes.
Now you can actually shave your head, or you can do your halq or taqsir.
Yes.
When we will come to it, we will explain it further. So they can actually then perform the next part of Hajj.
Thank you, dear Sayyidina, for that very beautiful answer. I'm so sorry, but that's all the time we have for today. Thank you once more for taking your time out and guiding us and the dear viewers. Dear viewers, I'm sure that you also found that very beneficial. Thank you for tuning in today. But the journey does not stop there, as I mentioned. In the next episode, inshallah, we're going to be now moving on to phase 2 on how to physically and spiritually prepare for the Hajj itself. So please do join us again on Sophia TV, where we will learn more about the philosophy and practices of Hajj. Until then, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.